Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Qualia Podcast. This is Evan Nova, aka Odex, and my coworker, colleague, and best friend,
Al. How you doing?
Al, aka Oneson Clang, but we go by Al Hard.
Yes.
So today, we're talking about a new topic. First time was about dreams. A lot of people like that. Today, we're going to be talking about aliens. ETs. Exactly. Yes, aliens. Aliens are a fun topic because a lot of people think they're cool. A lot of people think they're terrifying. A lot of people don't know what to believe. But I find that almost everyone who actually talks about aliens, there's very few people who actually will firmly say that there's no chance of them. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people are kind of like in between.
I mean, this is the thing. So this will segue into our first topic very well, but think about all the possibilities of an infinitely expanding universe, and people want to tell me that out of all the things in the entire universe, there's just one planet with life on it.
Everything on it.
I don't believe it.
And nothing else anywhere else.
I just can't believe it. It's just probability, you know?
And
it's a simple math thing that, everybody kind of knows.
It makes me wonder where people get this idea from, too, because it's like we have, like, only a handful of planets in our solar system, right? And, yes, we are aware that there's none of them are, really habitable except for Earth. And, yeah, some could argue with the whole Mars and the water on it that there might have been life. And that's one thing, if you consider alien life, cells and bacteria.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, though. Like I said, we only know what we see.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, actually, we can only see so far.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the Hubble telescope, we can only see so far.
Yeah.
We only know about a few galaxies that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We only know so much.
Yeah.
So how are we to say? How do we feel so important that we're just going to...
Like, what makes you confident enough to be like, there's no such thing as aliens? Like,
it's just
how do you know?
It's a difficult thing when you're working with probability. If anybody knows anything about math, let's say you have a piece of dice, and let's say all the sides have one dot on every side besides one of them. The probability is, if you roll the dice, you're going to get one dot, correct?
Right.
That's kind of this situation, except let's say the dice had 1,000,000 sides to it, or a quintillion sides to it, and you're going to tell me that you're going to roll the dice, the quintillion-sided dice, and you're going to get the one that doesn't have one dot on it.
Right.
I just don't believe it.
That's an interesting analogy. Yeah, I mean, it's just super, super unlikely that out of everything, there's going to be nothing. Not a single bit. Not one bit of bacteria. It's not like we can say, like, okay, we came from one specific thing that could never be repeated. Like, one certain thing. It's like, the only thing we know about our creation, like, in terms of science, could be repeated. And could have happened on another planet.
And the probability of that is very high.
Very high.
According to how big the universe is, forever expanding, new planets forever being created.
Yeah.
How are you going to tell me that there isn't other versions of Earth out there? Right. I mean, come on now.
We already know of some. Like, there's pictures and, like, images of legitimate Earth-like planets that are out there. Hundreds of thousands of them. And it's like, you're going to tell me that there's no chance of anything being in that water. Anything being on those rocks, on that land, the nice land, I should say, that looks really nice and warm. You're going to tell me that nothing landed there, ever in history? Because bear in mind, right, we can talk about the now, but there's still an enormous possibility that there could have been life in the past on one of these planets. Like Mars, for example, how there is evidence of water there. For all we know, millions of years before we ever were a thing, there could have been life there, and that still qualifies for alien life. It might not be alive
Mars could have just burned out. It could have been just like Earth for all we know, but
Absolutely.
We don't know because we weren't around back then.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's a little too hard to tell, but it is one of those things. I mean, I think during our lifetime, we're young.
Yeah.
As we've seen what they've discovered. Hell, in our lifetime, they discovered water on Mars. What are they? What else are they gonna find out?
The thing to me is the quintillion-sided dice theory.
Yeah.
If you roll a quintillion-sided dice, chances are you're not going to land on no life side.
Yeah.
Let's say every side has written on it life. And then there's one side that says no life. And like quintillion and one sides say on it, life is real on other planets in the universe.
Right.
And then there's this one tiny quintillionth side that's just like no life.
Yeah.
The chances of you rolling on that side is just, very unlikely.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Super unlikely.
But that's enough of that. I think we've drilled that into people's heads a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's, in other words, there is a good chance of it. I mean, it's like we only have so many planets in our reach, and there's obvious reasons why there's no life on them. They're too cold. They're they're not suitable for life. That's understandable. Obviously, you're not going to expect life to be on Pluto or on Uranus or on Neptune or Saturn. It's not going to happen. But take another planet that looks habitable, that is within close radius to a sun. Now try to tell me one reason why there shouldn't be life there. What makes you think there shouldn't be or wouldn't be?
It's hard to say no to that.
Yeah.
I mean, the simple fact is the human ego is bigger than a forever expanding universe. For a human to say, that's pretty big,
Say
right?
that again. The human ego.
The human ego is bigger than a forever expanding universe.
That is
I would
funny.
say that's pretty big, right?
That's pretty damn big and very, very true.
How can you think you're smarter than the universe? How
I
can
know.
you think you just know everything that you can't see? I
Right.
mean, it's just stupid.
All you need to do is look at one of those videos that's on YouTube about like showing how big the universe actually is. And people think it's just like some space, there's like some space around the Earth and that's it. It's like we are like a grain of sand on one single grain of sand, I should add, on a beach on Earth compared to the rest of the universe, and that's just in the observable universe. There's parts of the universe that are they're not observable. You can't even see that far. If light cannot even travel that fast to reach it, and that's still part of the universe.
Not even with 10 Hubble telescopes.
Yeah. Light itself cannot travel there, so you can't see it, but it's still there. And it's like, you're going to tell me that even out there is no possibility? Like,
This is the thing. I don't know if you know about the theory of how time works in space. So let's say, for whatever reason, you were 1,000,000 miles away from Earth, and you had this telescope that could see Earth, realistically, theoretically, I mean. Let's say you could see Earth, and you could see onto the surface of Earth from 1,000,000 miles away. The theory goes that if you were to see Earth from 1,000,000 miles away, that you would not be seeing us in the present sitting here.
right.
You couldn't see it. I mean, let's say we're outside on the porch. You couldn't see us outside on the porch with a telescope that could see 1,000,000 miles away, because time doesn't work like that
Right.
far away.
It takes time to travel.
What you would see is a bunch of dinosaurs walking around eating and grazing on plants.
Yeah. So imagine that for a surprise, right? Imagine you're an alien, like millions of light years away, right? And you're using your fancy massive telescope, and you look at Earth, and you're like, "Wow, dinosaurs!" And then you're like, "Wow, what's warp speed there?" And you get here, and it's us.
You'd be like,
Hey,
this is an awkward situation.
this is awkward. Well, might as well abduct someone while we're here, see whatever you
Then the
are.
question becomes, if there is no life outside of humans on the planet Earth and animals and all this stuff, where do we come from? What birthed us?
Yeah.
And how can people say that something wasn't birthed 1,000,000 miles away or
Yeah.
a quintillion miles away?
Yeah, and
Who
obviously,
can say that?
Obviously, there's a topic we can't really avoid. It is a huge part in it, and that is the religion aspect of things. There are for those, and I'm not going to sit here and get into a religious debate on anything. If you believe that
It's
God,
kind of besides the point,
No, but I'll get into why I'm saying that. If you believe that God created the Earth, then I understand why you would sit there and say there is no alien life. However, I'm an atheist, and I don't exactly stand with that, and my personal opinion is different. So it's a little bit easier for me to say that there isn't that isn't true, and that there is life out there, at least from where I stand, And again, if you're one of those devoted Christians, religious people, please don't get offended.
Difference of opinion.
It's just a difference of opinion. We'll leave it at that. Moving forward in this conversation, it's going to be for those who are, a little more, who are open-minded to the idea of aliens being elsewhere.
Yeah, so let's say theoretically. Now we just get into the bulk of the conversation.
Yes, and there's a lot of interesting abduction stories that are out there. And so here in general, right, even though I know a good deal about them, and I've read a lot of them, where I stand on them, right, so coming from an atheistic standpoint on things, a lot of the way it works is it's not you believe something, you have to disprove it.
Right.
if you present any claim, you need to prove it, or else it's just not worth the time. That's how it is in any kind of religious debate. That's how it's going to be in an alien conversation. However, when you get into alien abductions, there was a statistic I saw one time, and don't quote me on these numbers being exact, but there was something I saw, and it was like, there has been like a documented like 20,000, let's just say for a number, like 20,000 UFO abductions. And
those are the only ones reported.
Reported, right. There's people who don't report this, right? You know, you take those 20,000, and there is a good deal of, let's say, of the 20,000, like 10,000 of them that have been proven fake.
Right.
You still have 10,000 left that have not been proven fake. Ones that you cannot, that aren't CGI. Ones that, actually had multiple eyewitnesses. A famous one was the Travis Walton case. Are you familiar with it?
Go into it.
Yeah, the Travis Walton case is one of the most popular ones. And it's funny enough, right, my birthday was the other week, and Travis Walton himself, I have him on Facebook, he actually said happy birthday to me. I can't make this up. Like, I almost...
That's epic.
I wonder if he's going to hear this podcast. If so, hey, Travis, I'm just sharing your story. It's obviously a very public one. I added him because I had a question for him, because some of the stuff he reported was really interesting to me when you get into, like, the humanoid beings and stuff, and I thought it was so cool. And I'm like, it kind of fits, like, a theory I'd had at the time, so I'm like, I want to know a little bit more about these humanoid beings that he saw versus the gray ones, because I know there is two. They're separate. And that's something that has been in multiple abductions. Like the Barney and Betty Hill abduction was the same thing. There's humanoid ones, and then there was gray beings, which is a huge piece to a lot of this, right? Now, when you look at this from an outside point of view, you can just be like, oh, abducted by aliens. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, is that all you have to say? That it's unlikely? What makes it unlikely? Just still 10,000 you need to disprove first, buddy, that are out there and they're presenting evidence. And I can't sit here and say I know all 10,000. I only know a few of the popular ones.
You gotta take eyewitness into account as well.
Yeah.
Because if multiple people say they saw the same thing, that's kind of a big deal, in my opinion.
It's like the cave drawings of aliens. They featured it in I forget what movie it was. There's a newer movie that came out, and they featured it in the beginning of it where they showed, and this is something you can easily fact check, there was like a cave drawing of an astronaut like suit on cave drawings in 6 different spots. I think it was 6 different caves across all of Earth. In each corner, we're talking from like thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago, where they dated these carvings back to throughout their
That's
geographic
insane.
ways.
Did
right?
they have like the whole helmet on and everything?
Oh yeah,
Really?
and they all were like almost identical cave drawings, right? And they cannot, it's not like one caveman walked all the way across the Earth and drew it again, and then again, and then again, and again.
Very unlikely.
We're talking about like 6 different groups of cavemen from all different parts of the world and all different sorts of, states of evolution who drew these carvings of like astronaut-like figures and alien-like figures hundreds of thousands of years ago. And you're going to sit there and tell me that that's not weird, that's not that it's just a coincidence, that they were just bored of like, what? They drew this for a reason.
Back then, the only inspiration they had was real life. You can't
Right.
just make up an astronaut in your head in 8,000 years ago. I just don't see that as a possibility.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, so going back into the Travis Walton case, right, talking about eyewitnesses accounts, there was something that was so boggling about this one, and people still, to this day, for some reason, are like super critical on, thinking that it's so easy to do what they did, right? Assuming that this was a real thing that happened, right? So what happened to Travis Walton, right, was he went missing for a few days. He was with, I think it was 5 friends. They were all in one big car, and they were driving. It was in some kind of forest area, which is when they spotted a light. And they all got out of the car to go check it. And they all got up and were all able to witness this whole thing go down. But Travis was the only one who actually had, like, the guts to go up to it. Like, this big light UFO-looking thing. And he ended up getting abducted from it. All of his friends witnessed it. They all saw it go down. And he disappeared for days. And he woke up, like, I think he was, like, naked at some gas station. Like, it was like he came out of, like, a hypnosis, like, hypnotic trance.
Wow.
Didn't remember where he was or why he was there. He was just there, suddenly. Like his memory came back and his consciousness came back, and he was like, "Whoa!" And I think it was like he called 911 or whatever, and they, he reported himself there. And of course, everyone's like, "Oh, it was all a psychotic episode," and all this stuff. But it's like, how hard it is to beat a lie detector test. I think people don't give those enough credit, right? There is some ways you can fake it and you can lie around them, but you have to do like specific, like tricks to get around them. I've watched a lot of like these lie detector shows.
I feel like you need training.
You need a lot of training, and really good people who do polygraphs can tell when you're doing these things. Like it's not only is it recording you, but there's someone watching you too.
Absolutely.
There's certain ways you can move your body, like clench certain muscles, and it's supposed to help trick it. But it's like if a really good polygram, examiner can see you do these things.
You can't really fake your body language is the thing. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So go into his case, right? So it was him and like 5 other friends, and each and every single one of them, including Travis and all of his friends, took lie detector tests. I think it was either 5 or 6 of them total. All 6 of them passed. All of them. And not only did they all pass, but people still didn't believe them, so they did it again. And they passed again. So now you have 12, it was either 10 or 12 polygraph tests. Clear passing. All of them. So unless you're going to sit here and tell me that they just happened to say, you know what, let's make some crazy story up about this UFO thing, traumatize this guy's life, and then go on this huge rampage where people are like heavily religious in this town, right? They're like trying to kill these people for claiming that aliens are real. And you're going to sit there and tell me that all of them...
Oh, wow, that's another factor.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Did not even get into the fact that none of them wanted anything to do with this. Like, they were hiding from the media. They were hiding from, the paparazzi back then. Like, they didn't want anything to do with this. It's not like they were doing this for some showboat thing, like, oh, let's get fame. Like, they were doing everything they could to get away.
Let's ruin our lives. Let's have a riot in the town. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're getting away from this. Like, they're going far away from these people. They didn't want this for publicity. And if that's like the only argument you have is, oh, well, they did this for publicity. Well, you got that wrong. So now why would they do it?
And I guess a million other people did it for publicity too.
Yes, everybody. The most randomest people who didn't want anything to do with publicity did it for publicity.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they say they don't want publicity, because in your eyes, they still do. So it's like, well, what's the point of even listening to them in the first place? If you're going to sit there and be like, oh, well, they did it anyways for publicity. They did it anyways for fame. Like, how many of these videos, right? They're not even designed for, like, viral. Like, they're just random cell phone videos. People are like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, I think that might be UFO.
Right.
Like, what if just one of them actually was? Do you ever think about that? Even if one single video out there was actually real, and all the 9,999 other ones that were, not proven to be fake, even if those were all fake, and just one was real, I mean, that's enough. That's all you need to show that aliens are, have some kind of existence.
I mean, to deny it is just, it's insane to me. Personally, there's so many different accounts that I've read about, different situations, different locations, places all over the globe, where people don't even connect to each other. Like, for example, back in time, you have situations like crop circles.
Yep. Oh, yes.
And what do you say about crop circles?
Right.
Why would you just have a huge clearing in the middle of a field? What reason?
Yeah.
It's a signal for something. I mean, what other way can you look at it?
Yeah.
Why would they start doing them in the first place? Like, what's the point?
Oh, some of them even look like legitimate runways.
That's what I'm saying.
For aircraft.
It's a signal. It's a signal for something to be interested from the sky. It's something to go to.
I remember reading a lot about those too. You're very right. It's like, what purpose would those have?
Exactly.
What benefit would it be to do these?
And
it's
then,
not like you can
then,
see them.
And then people are gonna say, "Oh, it's a hoax." Blah blah blah. This and that. It's like,
well, they did.
Who has the time to just make all these crop circles around the world?
Not to mention,
people
right?
Don't even know what a crop circle is.
Not to mention, these things were so like accurately done. It's one of those things, right? From now in our modern day time, it's easier. we have better machines and better cutters and everything, which they didn't have back then. We have things now, it's easier to do them, and we have assistance from above that we can see. Back then, they had no, according to the people who don't believe in any of this stuff, they had no way of looking above to clarify that this was accurate. And then they did these with like manual tools that were like, low quality, probably didn't cut very well. And you're going to sit there and be like, oh, well, these perfectly trimmed and designed, beautiful pieces of artwork were just done on foot with no way of seeing it.
Sure.
For no reason.
Yeah. It's like, what did they make it from the sky? They flew up in the air and just like...
Look, what, they give each other like 10 fingers until they're high enough to see? Like,
see, this is what makes the crop circles more valid, in my opinion. There's more than crop circles out there. There's etchings in rocks, like...
Yeah.
Big rocks. You can see it from the sky if you fly over it with a plane. They're actual symbols carved in rocks. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah.
I honestly don't even know what they're called, but I've seen many pictures of this.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And these are located perfectly perpendicular with one another. Like in like stretches of land, like far away from each other, and they're just perfectly done in the same fashion. How are you going to tell me that people on foot did this? Hundreds and thousands of years ago, or 1,000 years ago, whatever. It's just, these things don't add up when you're trying to disprove alien existence. It makes no sense to me.
And then it's like you get into like the Pyramid of Giza. The most famous reason for, proving aliens that people, it's kind of like with the whole like 9/11 thing, and people automatically jump to like, certain theories about it, and people
conspiracies and whatnot.
Conspiracy, and people like hear it and they're like, oh, that's a famous one, that can't be true, like it's probably all, no, it's not true. And it's like, well, let's actually think about why it is that it's so popular, right? So like, with the Pyramid of Giza, I mean, even at the very basis of it, you already have to get into how the hell did they even build this in the first place? And that's the big question. And there are people who will make arguments that are, to some extent, legitimate about how there is ways that you can melt these things and carry them out via liquid and then reform them into shapes. But it's just like that, when you look at it, how on earth did they pull that off is one question. And two, it's
what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't downplay the possibilities of humans and the talent of humans in terms of building things, but at the same time though,
humans are only so
there's certain monuments and just buildings of all sorts that just, it doesn't really make too much sense for a human to be able to do that, I mean, certain situations where like you have all these monuments around the world, they're all shaped the same exact way, they're all trying to mimic this triangular, four-sided shape. You know what I mean? The Mayans had stairs on theirs. It was a little bit different. They had more square, like, tips and everything. Whereas the pyramids of Egypt were more like triangular and sharp at the tip. The thing is, like, they were all trying to mimic the same idea. And then you wonder, well, what sparked this idea in the first place? Because none of these people knew each other existed. They might not have even traveled outside of the region for all we know.
Right.
So how were they able to pull this off, continent to continent, the same exact thing?
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah.
The why is a big thing. It's like, what were they trying to do? What were they trying to signal? What did they do here? What was the purpose?
I don't know. I used to know a little bit more. I don't currently know as much history about the Pyramid of Giza. I know that it was dedicated to something at the time. Like there was some kind of king or leader who they were doing it for. So there was
it like King Tut or something?
Yeah, it was one of those sort of things. It was like in dedication, but it's like that is a huge, huge task to go on, right?
It's a big dedication.
And then it's like when you look at this, right? And again, I do agree, you don't want to downplay humans. There are certain aspects to it that could have been done with simply the human brain, but it's just so crazy. Like it's
bizarre.
I forget how many blocks there are like in this thing. They were just so damn high. It's like even with liquid, like doing it that way, that is so hard to do and get it right up there. I just don't get it. Like, because these are like pure hard blocks and they weigh tons.
Reverse that. So you're saying that people actually think that they melted down these blocks.
Yep.
And reformed them.
Yep.
With what process?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
And how would they carry it?
I didn't say I believe it.
I'm not saying you do. I'm just wondering how that would even be possible.
There are people who have made arguments, and it's something I would need to look more into, who will say that there is ways of melting these blocks down to liquid and then being able to reform them.
Oh my god.
Which is bizarre. Absolutely
Think
bizarre.
about this. What you would need to do is, in order to melt these blocks, you need a huge metal device that would hold this liquid. Because that's the only way you can melt these blocks.
Yeah.
You know, realistically.
Yeah.
And then to carry it, I would assume that you need like wood, like a wooden basin to carry it with wheels or something. Like,
Yeah.
what?
And then
like,
you have to get it up like 50,000 flights of heavy blocks after they're all dried and, molted back into shape.
people come up with these hypothetical situations that are absolutely preposterous to explain these things because they don't want to say anything that's out of the region of just human possibility. It's like, well, what if like it's not just humans that did it? Like, accept that. Like,
Absolutely.
at some point, people are gonna have to start accepting the unknown.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is another thing I think about. They say that they had wooden logs and they put these huge blocks on top of the wooden logs and rolled them.
I know what
It's
you're talking
like,
about.
how would you be able to do that?
And the funny part too is like I remember there's people who have like proven like there wasn't even trees in the area. Like the area they were in was so deserted. Like where did they even get these trees from?
How did they even survive out
Yeah,
there?
where'd they even get these logs from? Like,
There's too many questions with that theory of just
how do you even get this block up onto a log, right? Honestly, like it's still like tons and tons in weight. You're gonna tell me they were still able to lift that and not break their backs to get onto the
They
log?
just used the good leverage, yeah.
Unreal. Lift with your legs, not your back, right? Honestly, like
That's it. That's the key right there.
yeah, they
That's
just
it.
lift with their legs. That's how they got these blocks up to the top.
You know what my question is?
What?
When in recent history have humans built a pyramid the size of any of the pyramids that exist now?
Like that was harder to build than any of the skyscrapers we have now. Honestly.
I'm asking a serious question.
Yeah.
When's the last time they built a pyramid?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I have no clue.
Not using metal beams, not using wood. I'm talking stone blocks. When's the last time they did it? I don't think they have.
Well, I don't know if they
then-
need to.
I don't think they do either, but that might be another thing. If that exists, then prove me wrong. There's one thing I do know, is that there's a U.S. military base that's no longer in use, and it's shaped like a pyramid. I don't know if you've seen this.
Continue.
Well, it's in the Midwest, or it's in more of the West. I think it's in Nevada. If I'm wrong, then please correct me. It's somewhere in the region, but this structure is made almost entirely out of metal. It's like, it's a modern marvel, but it's shaped like a pyramid, and it has one side of it with a hole in it, and it's around it's like this round disc on the side of it. It looks kind of like a satellite or something on the side of this thing. What is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the
Yeah.
use of that? Like, what are they trying to do with that? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, these are questions that like people just don't care to ask.
Yeah.
And I see these pictures of this huge monument that's shaped like a pyramid, not quite the size of a pyramid, but it's a U.S. military base that's shaped like a pyramid, and it has one side, and it looks like the all-seeing eye. Tell me.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me what is that,
Yeah.
and why?
Why?
Right? You know what I mean? It's
I
a
always
serious
love how on the
question.
back of a dollar bill you have the all-seeing eye pyramid. It's like you really think it's a good idea to put that there.
Yeah.
And have us not question it. It's almost like, when they say, when something's in plain sight,
Yeah, you should
you don't
probably
notice
ask
it.
questions about it, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to hide something in plain sight,
There's a strange significance to pyramids, and you wonder why people would want to make pyramids when they could barely have food, probably. They were probably struggling to get water and food, but their main priority was to make a pyramid.
for
Why?
one person.
Yeah, what was the purpose? You know what I mean? What
Not to mention, do you really think they actually built this within the time period of that guy's life?
Probably not.
Or any of their lives?
He was probably a skeleton by the time they buried that body.
I know.
He might not. He might have been dust.
Like, the crazy thing is when you look inside the pyramid, too, not only are these massive, massive blocks, but they have, like, tunnels, like, legitimate, like, tunnels they mapped out in advance.
Not only do they have
That are like-
tunnels, but they have booby traps and
Oh, yeah, booby traps.
hieroglyphics, and I don't know.
They have tombs in there, and, like, I forget what the term is. like that underground like area of where the tomb is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like they have those.
where the
in there.
sarcophagus is.
Yeah, and it's like it's so mapped out like with excellence, and it's like you can. These tunnels are so narrow and so precise. Like, how do you do this on top of after melting these blocks and carrying them up to the top? Now you're gonna carve into them like this, right? With no equipment. They don't even have they didn't have electric saws back then that could drill into these things.
No, they did not. You know what else they probably didn't have? Pens and pads. I don't think they had those.
Yeah, they had clay.
They probably wrote on wooden blocks.
Yeah, and clay.
Actually, they might not. Did they have paper back then?
Probably.
Maybe.
I'm gonna say maybe. I don't want to sound stupid. They probably did.
I don't know these.
But in Samaria times, they used clay tablets to write because they didn't have paper at the time.
Well, they used to write on walls with whatever they used, probably clay, right?
So it's like, where are you even gonna map out this diagram?
I mean, that's
how you freestyled this.
I mean, I suppose that could be explained somehow, but the biggest part is
they had plenty of room on the blocks to draw. I'll tell you that.
The strange thing about the pyramids is that they have booby traps in there. Like, they're designed to, if you go in there, you get
killed.
Yes. It's
You don't
not
leave.
it's not looking too good for you.
Yeah.
But they're so expertly designed. Like, I'm pretty sure there's raising walls and booby traps that drop on you and all this kind of stuff. And well, why would they do that in the first place? What are they trying to hide down there?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. So recently, I don't know if it was the American government or the Egyptian government that stumbled across some kind of documents hidden deep within the pyramids. But the Egyptian government, I think, has rights to these things, so they're keeping them on the very low. And what are those? What are those about? Is there some sacred knowledge in there?
Yeah.
What's
in that?
Exactly.
What if it was just the biggest troll ever? Like, you get to the very middle of this pyramid and just nothing there.
There's a very good possibility.
Nothing.
It could be a diversion. There could be the real room right next to you, and you wouldn't even know.
I know. Turns out the Egyptians are trolls.
What's really weird though is, I don't know if you ever watched the History Channel or anything.
Oh yes.
But they had a lot of programs about the pyramids, and there was this one where it would show these expertly carved tunnels within the pyramids, but they would be diangular. They'd be going up and down. How would you do that? And how would you traverse through that once you built it?
Yeah.
I mean, these are questions that any logical person would wonder how that would be possible. All those years ago when there was no cranes, there was none of this stuff. There was, there was no computers to map this stuff out. I mean, they're probably still not. Humans are not capable of doing this now. I mean, I'm just saying that. And if they were capable of it, then they should do it and prove that they can do it.
Well, I think they're capable. It's just, one, why would they do it? And two, it will still be very, very hard.
Exactly, but it always
take a lot of time.
I can ask a million questions that lead nowhere, but the main one is why.
Yeah.
The main one is why.
Why? One thing I wanted to point out, I keep forgetting to add in, that gets me about the pyramid of Giza in particular, is the thing about the constellation that it's mocking?
Yes.
How? How on earth did you manage to do that? I forget how it is exactly. And bear with me on this podcast, too. I researched a lot of this stuff years back. I haven't touched any of these notes or theories in 2 or 3 years.
The thing about this
I'm going off memory.
The thing about this subject, though, you cannot be well-versed in this and still have good questions because there's a million of them.
Oh, yeah.
And they all lead to the exact opposite of what people say.
Yeah.
I mean, any logical person would wonder why.
Oh, absolutely. And
all these civilizations did basically the same thing. I mean, let's talk about the sundial room.
Yeah.
The perfectly planned out sundial that could tell the days and years and all this stuff, the calendar or whatever it is. How would you build a sundial as just a human back then? It's just all stone. You're working with all stone. You're not working with anything else other than stone. How would you do it?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be. Not only do you have to be really smart, you have to be strong. There's so many factors to this. You have to get all these people to be on the same page to do this.
Right. And even better, it's in Samaria times, right? That's, for those who are not familiar with Samaria, it's basically the origin of civilization. It's where all of our civilization comes back to. That is the basis of religion. It's the basis for writing. Any sort of thing that's ever been created kind of goes back to there. That's the origin. And yes, there was obviously apes, and there was evolution that occurred prior to all of this.
There could be
the
humans
cavemen.
before that, for all we know. Just no documentation.
Yeah, no recordings of it. And there are some things. I think it was in like maybe Turkey or somewhere. I forget that there was some dated recordings, but it wasn't anything like super significant. But Samaria is like the most significant one. And it's for the most part the origin. And it's like you go back and you look at these clay tablets that they wrote on in Sumerian, languages, and it's like in one of them they literally have a diagram of our solar system.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like it shows all the exact number of planets that we have and have discovered now, long before they could even see them. It's one thing if you can, you can kind of see like a tiny little star that is a planet.
It's impressive, to say the least. I mean, I don't even.
But they
have a
knew
word.
about all of them from far, far away. And the ultimate thing about this is there was one extra, one extra,
Which is
Planet X.
Dun,
Planet
dun,
X.
dun.
Fun fact for people who don't know, the name I go by in the music, I end with an X in dedication to this. It's one of the things that inspired it. Planet X, and Planet X is interesting because one, they know it's actually a thing now. For those who aren't familiar,
They tried to say it wasn't a thing for a very long time, but now it's getting harder and harder to disprove it.
They know it's a thing now. There is legitimate evidence of it. That's something you can look up yourself. So I
And
don't
people are
get
still
wrong.
going to try to say that's not a real thing.
Oh yeah, but no, there's actual evidence of it now. Now, as to what it actually is, we don't know yet in terms of like what we can tell in this moment. However, what's interesting is that even in the original diagrams from Sumeria, not only did they get like the exact number of planets right and like the order they go in from size,
Yeah.
but the final one being Planet X is in the same. They have like their own depictions of the orbit of this planet, right, being different from all the other orbits, and they have this in Sumerian clay tablets. And we come to find out Planet X has the same exact orbit as what they talked about in Sumerian tablets. Impossible to know this, right? Impossible to notice back then. It's one thing if you see a planet in the sky, you're like, oh, that might be a planet. Okay, we can add one more. But you can't see all of them, especially with no telescopes back then.
I mean, this ties it all back to aliens, really.
Yeah.
It's just like these people would not be able to. I mean, you want to give the benefit of the doubt to people. You want to say, oh, yeah, we are capable of all this because we're humans. We want to say that we are capable of everything.
Yeah.
But in these situations, it's like we must have had some kind of divine knowledge
Absolutely.
to be able to know about all this stuff.
To get all that right, it's unreal to me.
It's a lot to fathom. I mean, even right now, would you and I be able to know that if, let's say, we grew up in the Sumerian times?
Yeah.
I mean, realistically,
No, even better, right?
we just had a small tribe.
Let's say right now we knew nothing about this stuff. We had no Google.
Yeah.
All we had was telescopes. Just me and you, right? No training on them. Could
Okay.
we figure this out with just telescopes, us two? No.
No, probably not. We'd
No.
need the Hubble telescope.
Yeah, with the
times
technology.
10.
Let alone, so, and not to mention, these people who see this stuff, they're trained and go to school for a long, long time and have, training and experience in this stuff. They didn't have that back then, let alone the equipment. It's one thing if they happen to, like, even if you want to make some claim like, oh, they stumbled across the sun, they managed to build a telescope. Well, did they know how to use it?
Do they
And
know
see
where
this?
to look?
Yeah, where do you look? Do you know how big the sky is? Like, how do you find this stuff?
And if so, where is this telescope?
Yeah,
Please enlighten me
yeah.
where this giant telescope
Yeah,
is.
right.
I would have to.
It was in the Pyramid of Giza. That's where it was.
Yeah, it was buried at the
They
bottom.
built it at the same time because why not?
Man,
They probably
imagine-
melted it
Imagine
too.
how big like a primitive telescope would be.
Yeah,
It'd be the size of like a bus.
I know.
Maybe like 20 buses long. Like
How do you move it around? Did you have to
like,
melt it?
It's like pointing the biggest cannon of all time.
Yeah. You know what? If they wanted to move it, you know what they used? Logs. Okay, they probably moved the telescope with logs from the trees that didn't exist in the area.
Yeah, it turns out the moon was actually on Earth at one time.
I'm sorry if I'm trashing on this. I'm not trying to, but it's funny to me.
It turns
like
out
the claims that are out there.
It turns out that the pyramid was actually just a natural occurring landform.
Oh, true. Yeah.
It was just a big rock
Yeah.
that just was perfectly shaped like a pyramid.
Yeah, they fine tuned it a little,
But
but
the
that's
problem was it was located at the bottom of the ocean, so they needed to go down using primitive swimming equipment.
it. No, the flood moved it.
The flood could have moved it, but it only moved it to the beach. They had to move it
Okay,
to the
to the
desert.
beach, yes.
So they had to get 1 million logs, okay?
A million.
A million logs.
Okay.
A million ropes and a million men
Yes.
to move this whole entire pyramid. And they successfully did it. And I have proof of this.
Okay, where's your proof of this, Al?
My only proof is that I just know what happened. Because I know everything. Because my ego is bigger than the universe.
True,
that's forever
true.
expanding.
Well, okay. Awesome. I think we wrapped up this podcast. We figured it out, guys. We figured it out.
We've came to the paradox of just human greatness, guys.
Oh, my God. Yeah. We're smart people.
You're starting to look like you have 3 eyes over there.
I know. It's growing on my forehead. So, the third eye.
Yep, we're
Yellow-seeing
just
eye.
divine beings, man.
Yes.
So
We have to have a little fun in this.
Yeah, it's just too much to fathom sometimes, these claims that people make.
I know.
The melting blocks one,
That's a bit bizarre.
that one, I can never forgive whoever made that one up, because you know there's people that believe that.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like there's people that say dinosaurs don't exist, yet there's millions of fossils just buried all over the
evidence of
world.
all of it.
And it's just like, oh, well, you know what? They just made plaster bones, and that's all we know.
Implanted them.
Yes. And
Dug 'em up and planted 'em.
Yeah, it's like it's like an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, right.
So the global elites, they made up these plaster figures of creatures that don't exist, and they just buried them all over the world, deep in sediment. And then they were just like, dinosaurs. Yep,
Right.
that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into what I'm going to say too much because I don't know how true it really is. But there are claims that there are actually skulls they have found that are not or of human shape that have been dug up.
I believe that.
Skulls that resemble exactly what you would imagine something like the Anunnaki to look like.
It kind of
and are
reminds me.
depicted as.
It kind of reminds me of Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
where they had like the crystal skulls, and there was like the elongated, backside of the skull.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's legitimate. That's a thing from history.
It must have been based off something.
Oh, it is. There's
know?
such thing as crystal skulls.
Yeah.
I can't get into them too much. I don't know enough about them. There's such thing as crystal skulls that are planted around the world
Yeah.
and that are being discovered. Same thing with the elongated skulls. So,
This is the thing, though. I think that if there are skulls like this and bones and, even remains of it, if there is aliens on Earth, maybe there is, they're not going to show themselves to us.
right.
That, the whole world would be in a tizzy. You know what I mean?
You know what? I found an alien one time. You know who's an alien?
Who?
Obama.
Wow.
You ever see that conspiracy? It is the stupidest thing I have ever seen in my life.
Well, they
Obama's
say-
an alien.
they
He's
say
a
they-
reptilian.
Yeah, they say he's a reptilian. They say Hillary Clinton is a reptilian.
Yep.
She has a forked tongue that she tries to hide.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things.
Yeah.
We don't, on this podcast, we don't co-sign those beliefs.
I'm actually a reptilian.
Okay.
Just saying.
Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to change my plans.
Yeah, he just walks out. Just thump, 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 thump.
I don't collaborate with the enemy.
Yeah, with the reptilian squad. Oh man, these are unfortunately, some of these conspiracies
They're so bizarre
They
that-
give a bad light to the real ones. It's like of any conspiracy, like really reptilians. First of all, the thing is like the reptilian alien thing. I still don't understand where it comes from. Honestly,
Somebody made it up because they thought it was funny.
somebody definitely made it
I
up.
mean, this is the problem with all these things is that you can have a really good, theory or, maybe you have the answer to a conspiracy. Maybe there is a conspiracy. But then some guy who has all this influence makes up this stupid lie and makes everybody look bad.
Yeah,
That's kind of what this whole alien thing has come to.
yeah,
If there was, see, the thing about aliens specifically is that in the 40s and 50s, the whole flying saucer thing was real popular. But I believe there's a reason why there was a such thing as flying saucers, because they say, oh, the only reason that you think there's aliens is because the media depicted them and all this and greys and all these creatures. The media just created these as Hollywood monsters to scare people. That's what is accepted belief now, just because that was popular in the media in the 50s.
You remember when the UFO crashed? Was it
Roswell?
Roswell,
Yes.
yeah, the
Yes.
Roswell incident.
Yeah.
The UFO literally crashes with supposedly aliens, flying.
It was in New Mexico, right?
yeah, New Mexico,
Yeah.
and it crashes down, And like the next day, there was a newspaper with all this information and evidence of this being real, reporting everything that they could find and figure out, saying that, this actually happens. They're not sure what to do. Aliens are like, have proven themselves. And then the next day, that paper is gone. Nowhere to be found, taken off everywhere. All the headlines are gone.
Doesn't surprise me one bit.
And the government's just like, no, that wasn't a UFO. That was like a Hollywood thing. That was just a weather balloon. Like, all of these just stupid excuses for it.
I mean, they recovered material from the crash site. If I remember correctly, there was actually pictures of the material collected. It was like a metallic looking, material.
And interestingly enough, the reports on that is that it's not anything of Earth origin.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't know if there is images of it, but
there is.
If there is, I'm pretty sure I've seen it. It looked very different from what you're used to.
The people who describe it,
it definitely didn't look like tinfoil. I'll say that much.
Yeah, there's someone who described someone who was involved in this, and they said it's like, it's not tinfoil. It's like a weird, like, it looks like it a little bit. It's like kind of like springy a little bit. It's like, it's not like anything we have. And it's just interesting. And that's also a common theme in some of these like abductions. Like in the Betty and Bernie Hill one, which was the other big famous one I want to talk about a little. It's like after this UFO, it's like there was like this like pink powdery substance like that was found on her. And they don't know what this substance is to this day. There's no Earth origin of it.
And they won't tell you what it is.
Nope. They've taken this powder and they still have no clue what it is or where it comes from. But it was something that came specifically from this UFO. And so for those who don't know that story, the gist of it, this was back in like the 1940s, 50s. It was years and years ago. I think it was in New Hampshire. I think they were up in a mountain range, driving around. They were coming back from some trip, and it was the way they ended up having to go. And they spotted a light, kind of classic generic moment. If they see the light, they see the UFO approaching, and they both originally Bernie went out to go confront it, and Betty followed afterwards, and they both ended up getting abducted by this UFO, and it's like, sorry, I coughed. After that, it's like, at that moment, the only thing that they remember was they were driving, stopped, got out, and then they were driving again. Right? But it was like 2 hours later when they regained memory.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Not consciousness, like they were driving, as they would, but they have no recollection of the next few hours. Suddenly, they're just driving again. And it's kind of like when you get like that hit of deja vu and you're like, whoa. Same thing happened except for them becoming aware of what they're doing. All of a sudden, they're just like, whoa, we're driving. And they're just back to it. And they're like, it's been hours and hours. And suddenly, they're just back. And at the time, they didn't know what happened. They didn't have a clue as to what happened. They were kind of groggy. They were confused. And it wasn't until like the following week or so, under hypnosis therapy and stuff, trying to figure out what happened, that they started getting flashbacks of the abduction. And they went through hypnotic treatments, and they were able to recollect all of this information from this, through nightmares they were getting at nighttime. All their nightmares were like scenes of what happened during
They're getting recollections and all that.
It's coming back to them. And that's when the real story starts coming out about what happened to them. And in this case, unlike the Travis Walton case, where in Travis Walton's case, it seemed like they weren't so friendly with them. The aliens were a bit meaner. In this case, they seemed to be a lot more friendly. Like, they weren't out to hurt them, because Betty reported that, one of the things they were doing to her, they were checking her, like, nervous system after doing a whole, like, study on her body of, like, her ears, nose, mouth, whole face and body. The next thing they did hurt her, and they noticed that it hurt her, and they actually stopped, and they continued with something else. It's not like they were there to inflict all this pain, but they were, like, studying humans.
Sounds like some pretty decent aliens.
Yeah, I'd chill with them. I'd hang out with these aliens. I'd get abducted by them. That's just something interesting to think about, too, the fact that they weren't evil to her. But one of the things, and no promises, but I'm going to try to make the what is it? The thumbnail picture for this, an image of what I'm about to mention. One of the highlights of this whole event was that during the abduction, so she claims, they were able to show her where they came from. She asked them, where are the origins? Who are you? And they showed her a map of a constellation, right? And she was able to get a good look at it. They were able to show, I remember they were even painting out trade routes between star to star in this constellation, where they got their supplies from, how would the whole system worked. And she got a good mental image of this. So during the hypnotic therapy, she remembers this, and they tell her, okay, well, we're going to focus in on this. We're going to have you really think about this image, and I'm going to have you draw it out the best you can. So she did, and drew it out. They had never seen anything like it. It was known, there was no constellations like it, So they kind of brushed off as okay, well, whatever. You just, probably wasn't real. Fast forward 50 years later, and they discover a constellation that's merely identical to the one she's talking about, called Zeta Reticuli, which is kind of now the prominent area for where these gray aliens and UFOs seem to be coming from. And now that we know it, when you compare these drawings, yeah, it's not perfect.
It's pretty close, though.
But it's pretty damn close. I showed you it before we started this podcast. You saw it yourself.
Yeah.
It is pretty damn close.
I mean,
how did you get this information? How did you if this was a lie, you're going to tell me you predicted this constellation? This star system?
It's highly unlikely.
Way before we knew it was a thing. And I need to emphasize, at the time, they did not know Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah.
Nor would she, some random lady, know about this constellation and have an image of it prior to all this. This was something through her hypnotic treatment she was able to say she saw.
It was important to her enough to remember, apparently.
And then turns out it's real? And identical to her drawing? It's one of those things that's bizarre. On top of the pink substance that was on her that they still don't know where it came from. And apparently there was also evidence of I forget how they described it. It was circular imprints on the ground nearby the vehicle.
Oh, wow.
That would resemble landing gear.
Yeah.
So, you can knock all this stuff and say, oh, it just wasn't, didn't happen. But in their case, it was an interesting one because there was some physical evidence of this. Mm. And then with the whole constellation thing, it's just wow.
Yeah, it's bizarre, right?
How on earth did you come up with this? If it was all a lie.
I have one that's a little bit more... It's a little bit more subtle, and it's not very much talked about in a literal sense, but Point Pleasant, Virginia, I think this was in the mid-70s, I'm pretty sure, late 60s, early 70s, but there started being the sighting, and if anybody knows about this, it would be about the Mothman. And while I say this, it sounds stupid, it sounds, redundant, you could say a lot of things about these, cryptid cases or whatever. But this specific case seems more like an alien, occurrence,
right.
More than anything else, like a humanoid creature, not really. So they started seeing this flying creature around, very big, had big wings and everything, and it was often seen around the Point Pleasant area. I'm pretty sure it was only in Point Pleasant. But what was bizarre about this case is that eyewitnesses said, a lot of people, not just a few, men in black suits and shades that all looked the same would go to the town and just snoop around all the time for the whole duration of this entire thing going on. This weird phenomenon of this creature being seen everywhere. Now, whether or not the creature did it or didn't exist is kind of irrelevant to me. It's the fact that the FBI would go to this random town in Virginia for whatever reason and just be snooping around. That was bizarre in that place.
Right.
That just does not happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's around here, when have you just seen the Men in Black just rolling around?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? They only come to places that there seems like there's some weird stuff going on, right?
Uh-huh.
So this story leads to a climax, and the climax is there's a bridge. I think it's called the Point Pleasant Bridge, or there's a name for this bridge, but a lot of people drove on this every single day. So one side's going the other way, On the specific day, the climax of this whole story, the bridge collapses and hundreds of people die. Never seen again, this creature. And the FBI was gone.
Right.
You're going to tell me that's just random?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's too bizarre for me to not think about, right?
Yeah, it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care whether or not the Mothman was a thing or not. It could be anything, you know?
Yeah.
It could, you know, a lot of people called it the omen in build up for the bridge collapse. Because it was a big disaster, like a lot of people died from Point Pleasant. It was a strange occurrence.
So here's, when it comes to the Mothman, right, my stance, and I've seen bits and pieces about the Mothman here and here, you know, my big thing when it comes to any sort of extraterrestrial life is one question, and that's why. We talked about this earlier. Why everything? Why would they be here? What importance would it be for them to come to us? From as far away as we seems like they're coming from, why? Why would they be here? What importance would it be for them to abduct someone? You know, and then you can answer, well, you know, they can study humans. You know, they can when they take them up and they do all these medical exams, you can get an understanding of the creatures, you know, how they work, and you can, you know, and the ones that are just flying above, it's pretty obvious, you know, with their equipment and technology, they can study the Earth and how we work.
It's the same thing that humans do to animals.
Right.
Study animals.
Yeah.
They're studying us.
We creep on in and we study them.
If there's more intelligent life than us, then they're studying us out of curiosity.
Yeah, hell, we get abducted by them. We put animals in cages and watch them.
Exactly, and do testing and give them drugs and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, and if that's not a reason to advocate for animal freedom, then I don't know what is. But
right,
and lack of testing. But
we think we're the apex species.
But, but when we get abducted, we don't like it.
No.
How do the animals feel?
That should be a humbling feeling for people to know that, you know, that could definitely be a thing.
Absolutely. I never thought about that, to be honest, until now when I started thinking about it.
There's a chain.
Saying it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, we don't like it when we're abducted, so animals don't like it when they are either.
No.
But that's beside the point. The main question is, you know, as I was saying before, why? You know, so we can understand that. When you get into something like the Mothman, why? And I'm knocking on that. I'm not trying to.
It's humorous.
Why would there be a flying Mothman destroying a bridge?
There's a few different reasons. One, it could be a creature that was created by the government. You know, that's a crazy one. That's a tinfoil hat theory. Or it could be a creature that somehow landed on Earth and got trapped there. Or it could just be a cryptid that exists on Earth and just, you know,
like Bigfoot.
Like Bigfoot.
Like Bigfoot.
We're not going to talk about that. That's too out of the realm.
Too out.
Yeah, that's too out there.
But that is the only issue I have with the Mothman theory is why would any of that be a thing? At least when you come to
this is what I said though. I don't care about the Mothman. I don't care about Bigfoot. I don't care about any of these creatures. I don't care about the Loch Ness Monster. They can all go somewhere for all I care.
Yeah.
They can have a party in East LA.
No party.
With Tupac and Biggie for all I care. I really don't.
Hollywood.
Yeah, in Cuba. They can all chill and
you know where they'll have a party? Area 51, all right?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Party spot for them.
There's a reason why you get killed if you try to go near Area 51.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They'll shoot you down if you go to Area 51.
I remember watching a video of a family who accidentally went that way. They were tourists. They went down the wrong road, and literally, like, a 5-year-old kid had an assault rifle pointed to his head.
Yeah.
The whole family of them. And they all were arrested. Like,
that's
really?
Insane.
Do you really think that 5-year-old kid is thinking, oh, I'm going to go to solve the mystery of Area 51 today and run in there, past everything, assault rifle to the head? Oh, man. That stuff just ticks me off.
The bottom line is, think logically. So let's say aliens exist. Just 100% they exist. The Mothman exists. All these things exist. Let's just say,
sure, for,
podcast sake, this all exists. Now, think about the leaders of the world. I'm talking about the top of the top of the top of the top of the top elite. Okay, we're going that high. We're going the man that knows everything about everything.
All right,
like the number one man.
Gotcha.
Would he want the human population to know about aliens?
Oh,
existing?
Everyone always asks that question. I definitely think not. Like
exactly, because it would cause mayhem. Because then people would be like, oh my God, everything we've been told is a lie.
Yeah.
They've been hiding it from us. You know?
There would be backlash, especially in a world where there's guns right now in our hands.
It would be a civil.
backlash.
It would be a civil war, and then people would have existential crises, and not only existential crises, but just like universe crisis.
Every religion would get affected by it, whether or not they stay alive or they keep going.
It would destroy the world.
You ever seen
there's
one of those movies out there? I forget which one it was. It was a famous alien abduction movie that was put out, and it's like right when they discover proof of it, all of the very devoted Christians, like one of them blew up like this huge, like they had like some huge like time warp machine that they built to get to these aliens and contact them, and it's like someone went in there with a bomb and blew up the entire thing because they couldn't handle religion being wrong and there being aliens in such denial that they blew up the proof of it, and it's like once you get into like realistically speaking how many of these things that are out there, how many devoted people they are that would get destroyed by it.
What I kind of wonder is, why does aliens existing interfere with religion? Who's to say that, your God didn't create aliens?
Well, it's not so much it would ruin religion, but it's like when we're made out to be special and there is no talk of them. There is the scholars will tell you that there is things inside the Bible that do hint to aliens. But, devoted Christians will say that is not aliens.
Why don't we put it into terms like this? What if God is an alien?
Oh, absolutely.
And what if all these angels we hear about, they're actually aliens?
Oh, that's what I've always believed.
These are like ethereal beings, like, clearly. And what do you think of as an alien?
Well, you know the name, right?
What?
Anunnaki.
Yes.
For those who are not familiar with Anunnaki, that is from the Sumerian tablets I was talking about.
Enlil.
Yeah, Enki and Enlil, exactly. They were the two brothers who are essentially God and the devil. And I'm not on here to knock at religion, but this is a true, like a story. I'm not going to say a true story. A story from Sumerian times. This is not knocking on religion of any sort. This is facts. Like, this is something that was wrote, and it has the right to be out there for people to know. The story essentially goes that on Planet X, a.k.a. what they refer to as Nibiru, which actually means the planet of crossing, which, for those who know about Planet X, the orbit of the planet, it basically goes around all of our planets, that are in our little solar system here. It carries around. I don't know how to describe it. They have to see it. You look at ours and they all go in a circle, one after the other. But this one kind of loops around in an oval. It comes in between, I forget which planets. It might be us and Mars, or it might be Mars and the next planet. It crosses through in like an oval, like an outside oval, and then it leaves the solar system. And this was something, yes, they predicted back in the Sumerian times. It was part of the orbit that they had drawn out. How many years now? Like 8,000 years later, they discovered that it's an actual planet with our technology, and they discovered that it's a real thing. And that's what Planet X is. They call it the planet of the crossing because it crosses through. So the story goes that this planet crossed through, and when it crosses through, and this is where all the alien conspiracies about Anunnaki's returning, the aliens are returning. This is, just so you know now, this is where it comes from. This planet supposedly crosses through, and back in those, 8 to 10,000 years ago or so, back in the times of Sumeria, these beings from this planet, when it crossed by, they came down to Earth to mine the Earth of monoatomic gold, which is, in fact, a substance that can be turned into another sort of form and used as a shield for like radiation and as a barrier, right? And if done correctly with certain technology, it can be used for that. And in their scenario where Nibiru goes so far away from the planet and then suddenly comes back to the sun, you'd have to get into the science of it. It's something that they would actually require for a planet like this, if it's how they say it is. So it made sense why they would be mining for it, but that is what they came down to use, and that's when they use, the Earth, as basically its resource. And they use humans as slave workers to do this. And this is where, unfortunately to say, all of these stories come about. All the stories you hear about in any religion, they kind of originate back to this time period when we were down being used as slaves, essentially. You know, and I could honestly make an entire podcast just on the story of Enki and Enlil enslaving us. One of them being the good guy, one of them being the bad guy. Spoiler alert, the bad guy's actually the good guy. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you go back to the original story, the one who is actually doing all this stuff with us, aka God, was secretly actually the one who was making us become slaves for his own benefit. And then the one who actually broke us free is the one that he referred to as what we know as the devil. In story, his name was Enki. Enki was the devil, but was actually the one who saved us out of this slavery and out of this, you know, and got us to rebel against them. You know, and that's when, and, you know, Enlil tried to kill us all, when, you know, the Great Flood story. Except in Sumerian times was from things like poisoning and starving us, leaving us with no
famine,
water. Yeah, famine, no water.
Yep.
Physically trying to kill us in several different ways, spreading poisons, diseases.
Sounds like a good guy.
Oh, yeah, stopping pregnancy in females was another thing they did. Oh yeah, unreal. Sounds like a god to me. But Enki was the one who actually saved us from that. And come the time of, you know, their planet was finishing its orbit around back here, they left.
For good reason, sounds like.
Yes, for good reasons. Now, so here's the interesting thing. I just want to finish this little conspiracy about it. So the reason why they say that aliens are returning is because the planet does come back around, and we don't know what the orbit actually is, you know, in science terms. Like, we don't know how long it would actually take for this planet to come around. It could take hundreds of thousands of years. It could take 10,000 years.
For all we know, it could work on its own physics.
Yeah.
There's nothing known about it.
Yeah.
I mean, do we even know what color it is? Do we know what it looks like?
Well, in the scripture, it was red. It was a red planet.
Okay.
It was the bright red planet. And going into what we know now, I'm pretty sure they say it's blue. I don't know how accurate that is, so we'll have to find out one day. But it's kind of like they had all this information about it, and the last little piece of it that's left out is, well, how long is the orbit? If they knew about this planet back then, they might know about the orbit. And from what I understand, scholars were able to depict that they claimed it was like a 10,000 year orbit, give or take. So take that into a timeline scenario, right? Every 10,000 years, this planet comes back around. That's longer than that's, you know, about the length of our civilization. If this planet were to come back around, no, it wouldn't have happened in history other than this one time because of the length of the orbit. So it's not like something that's repeated before and so we can see it.
You think about it, it's pretty far out. The diameter is probably huge.
We think that civilization's been around for a long time. Well, this orbit is longer, or about the length of it. So even though it sounds like one of those things where it's like, oh, that can't be happening in our lifetime, or you know, it feels too weird, like we're special or something, that we'd be around for it, so it doesn't feel realistic.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if this orbit is actually 10,000 years, this will return around this time back in its orbit again, if that's true. Now we don't know enough about the actual Planet X that we found to know.
Do we know how big it is? By
Huge.
Any chance? Way bigger than Earth,
Huge.
probably, right?
Oh, huge. That's all I know. It's massive.
There must be a lot of tall figures on that planet.
Yeah. Plenty of pyramids.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that.
See, this is my thing. It all ties into this, and I don't have facts and I don't have evidence. All I have is logic and reasoning in these kind of scenarios. They made the pyramids for some reason. They made crop circles they made signs, crop circles, all these things for some reason. In my opinion, they made it to signal other beings from the sky. I mean, why else would you make those things? From boredom? I doubt it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a kind of a... You probably die in the process of doing that, you know what I mean? A lot of people.
We secured your boredom.
Yeah,
We secured
at the
boredom.
expense of your life, but...
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that people really need to start asking themselves. I mean, I feel like people are slightly scared of the possibility of aliens.
Absolutely.
I think that's why a lot of people want to disprove things, because they're just afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And I don't blame people, because I'm kind of scared too. I don't know what these intentions are of these aliens.
Right.
I have no idea. They might want to destroy the world for all I know.
Yeah.
They might hate us. They might want to get rid of us. But
Maybe
I
they
mean,
want to love us and show us compassion.
then that's the flip side. And I believe in it.
Right.
I believe in these things
Feel that.
just because you know, whatever their intentions are, whatever they do for us, maybe they're around, you know what I mean? Because, like, the government can easily pull a masquerade on us if they do know about aliens, if they're in contact with aliens. You know, the top of 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 the world, the dude up there, he might be talking to the aliens. We don't know this stuff.
He could be an alien.
He could be. The leader of the world could be an alien.
And yeah, in fact, it could.
I mean, really think about it.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but I mean, these are questions that are, you know, you can't disprove these questions.
Right.
I mean, who's the top of 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 the world?
Yeah.
Nobody. Like, no one knows who that is. And I don't think they want anybody to know who they are.
Yeah.
But these are real questions, you know what I mean? And then this ties into early spacecraft, such as flying saucers that were actually prototypes and built. So, let's talk about the Nazis, for example. Technology far ahead of their time. Where did they get the inspiration from? These guys, as terrible as they were onto something with technology, I'll say that much. From doing a little bit of research, what I learned is they created synthetic oil, the V1 rocket, which is like the basis of like all the rockets that we have now, I'm pretty sure, which is a big deal, to be honest. I mean, this is the type of stuff that got us into space. When the Nazis disbanded and the Americans, the Allied powers won World War II, in order to spare themselves, the high-ranking Nazi scientists came to the American side to work on the NASA project and get the Americans into space, or they would die. So
Right.
that's what they did.
Right.
So these are things that I tend to wonder. For example, where did they get their inspiration from? Because these guys went all over the world digging for information, and they dug into ancient sources to figure out these things. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of evidence that claims that the Nazis actually did create what we know of as flying saucers. They had prototypes of these things, allegedly. Not saying they do. I'm not
Right.
saying they did.
Uh-huh.
But what I am saying is there is, blueprints and things left around. So what I'm saying is they use like electromagnetic pulses in things to propel these saucers through the air. You know what I mean? These things would like spin around at great rotation, you know what I mean? Very fast in order to propel through the air. So what we might have seen as people throughout history, we could have been seeing the work of humans. You know, some of these flying saucers, they could have been human technology for all we know. We really don't know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what we can kind of figure is where would somebody get the inspiration to even build this? You know what I mean? And there's so much technology, for example, phones, laptops, these microchips, Wi-Fi, all these things came around at like a very fast rate. It started like in, like the 60s, 70s, 80s, they started building these huge computers. But it was like the 90s, it's like, yeah, we had like pretty big phones and everything. But then like 2000s hit, touchscreens, Wi-Fi, all this stuff. I mean, where did it come from?
So it's what it reminds me of is when you get into like something like Sumerian civilization. There's a big thing with that is that it seemed almost as if, and it obviously didn't, but it almost seems like it literally just popped up overnight, like everything. Like if you go back to Sumerian civilization, they had law systems, school systems, they had everything that we have today, like out of nowhere. You go from being a caveman living in a cave, and it takes you hundreds of thousands of years to learn how to use sticks and stones correctly.
Yeah.
And then within the matter of like in comparison to like the, how fast we were developing,
Yeah.
we should never, ever have been able to build a civilization like this for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's something, if you go into timelines, you can see. I don't know how to say it as well right now. If you saw in a timeline how quickly this came about, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm not knocking on evolution. I actually believe in evolution. I just do believe that when it comes to evolution, there are factors that influence it. And so what made us suddenly develop this? Like, develop all these systems so perfectly and so, just make the civilization like this, right? So advanced compared to what we were. It doesn't make any sense to happen on our own. So there had
doesn't.
to have been something. And they didn't have any prior examples really to go off of. Very little if they did.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to underestimate humans, but at the same time, though, a lot of these things come eerily fast. Like, I'm sure there's going to be advancements very soon that are going to be, like, crazy monumental. I can guarantee it.
There already is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there already is, but I'm talking, like, pretty soon.
Yeah.
There's going to be some stuff that's like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, we're kind of apathetic to all the stuff that comes out now.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're going to get our minds blown again.
Oh, absolutely. But by the time we die.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's going to
absolutely.
be some stuff.
You know, it's like when you see old people now and they're like looking at our smartphones and they're like, wow, like I never thought this could be a thing.
Exactly.
This is incredible.
See, like, normal people that see stuff like that, they're like, how is that even, like, who thought of this? Like, how could you just come up with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, how could you conceive this?
But we're going to have our own version of that.
I know.
And I'm so hoping that it's in the spacecraft world and in any of the space world. I'd love to see that more.
It
than
always
anything.
leads back to the question, who inspired that? All this stuff, it's like, you know, it was inspired by something, because no thought is original, and history repeats itself in that sense.
Right.
And you go back and you kind of, like, look at the cave drawings and stuff, and it seems like even them back in the day, they were drawing pictures of, you know, flying saucers and all this stuff. I mean, you know, it came from somewhere. They didn't just want to draw this stuff because it just popped in their head. You know, it doesn't really happen.
Or if Samaria, we're talking about the civilizations coming about.
Yes.
Well, regardless of what you want to say about it, the Sumerians still wrote that it was the Anunnaki that inspired this. Whether or not you want to take any of the scriptures serious, you know, they still wrote that was the reason.
They inspired civilization.
Yeah, and they were
And
taught
what
civilization.
inspired them?
Well, that's a whole different thing.
Exactly.
Where did these aliens come from, and where did they learn their ways?
My thing is,
We'll never know that, but
by definition, we have to be aliens.
well, we are aliens.
Exactly.
To an alien.
Exactly.
To an anything off Earth, we're an alien.
Exactly. Like, even if there's no life on Mars, Mars looks at us like an alien. If Mars had a brain, it would be like, this is weird.
Right. So I want to leave with one good analogy for you, right? Because I know we're aiming at like an hour and 16 minutes right now. We've been going for a while. I want to leave with an interesting analogy. This came, and I want to make sure I credit this 100%. Eric von Daniken, he has a book called Chariots of the Gods. Incredible book. He's a very famous, scholar and specialist and expert in this sort of field. And there's so many good things in here that you read it and it convinces you, like, wow, like I never thought of that.
That cover looks legit, man.
It's the pyramids.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric von Daniken, I love this guy. So the first chapter covers a couple things. Two things that at the get-go will completely give you a reason to consider this, at the very least. And there's one that gets into numbers, which would take way too long to get into now, which is where he basically takes the number of known stars and systems that are known. In stars alone, there's like the sextillions, which is so many zeros at the end. It's an unfathomable amount of numbers and zeros and stars that are out there. And he kind of takes the odds of each group of them, and say you take 1/10 of those and say that 1/10 of them are actually stars, like that are still alive. You take 1/10 of those and you get, the amount of those that are, let's say, that have a planet within 20,000 light years away,
Yeah.
and then you take the 1/10 of those stars that are left and you do this and you do that. And he goes down and down and down of 1/10 after 1/10, getting to a point where it's 1/10 of these have life on them. And then 1/10 of those have intelligent life. 1/10 of those, bear in mind, you're getting rid of 9/10 of all of those just for the sake of odds.
Yeah.
The odds are not even in your favor in this case. They are so against you. 1/10 of those, and say that those aliens are intelligent enough to leave their planet. And you get down to the final one, which is 1/10 of them that can find us. And it's you still have a number of 250,000 of aliens that can find us. It's bizarre when you think about it, and anyone's like, "Oh, well, it's still unlikely."
That sounds like a low ball.
That is the
250,000.
biggest
sounds like
low
a
ball ever. Even if you took the original number, right, instead of 1/10 and you changed it to 2/10, your number is now like multiplied extensively. Like
The
what
way
you come down to.
It comes down to my janky theory called the quintillion-sided dice theory.
Yep.
It's like
started with that.
you could roll it a million times and you could probably still get, the life option on on the bottom side of the dice if you could even see it. I don't know how many sides that would be to hold in your hand, but damn.
Right. So
You know what? If you had a piece of dice that big, you would either need to melt it or you need to roll it on
On
wood,
logs.
on
Yeah, on
wooden logs.
wooden
There's
logs.
no other way that you could roll that.
That's funny.
And then once you get it rolled and
good.
shook up, you need a way to shake it up too. I think you need to cause an earthquake to get it to shake. And
Or a
then-
flood.
Yeah, you need a flood. Yeah,
Because that will knock it around a bit.
you need a flood and an earthquake.
True.
So you engineer this fake way to make the world have an earthquake or like like a flood or something, like a tidal wave, to
True.
make this quintillion sided dice move a little bit, and whatever it falls on is the probability of aliens existing.
But remember, it has to land inside of a crop circle.
Yeah, and
You have to roll it in the crop circle.
once it lands on the crop circle, you kind of know what that says in the first place. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
You're a genius, Al. I'm glad you came on tonight with me to do this.
sometimes, man, you just gotta put aside your human ego and just accept the fact that you are not the best life form in the universe.
Yeah.
You heard it from me first, ladies and gentlemen, the man that no one knows.
Now,
Don't listen to me.
So that was part one of the analogy I was going with the numbers. There's one other half to it I want to just kind of paint out for you. Just think of this, okay? So we have pretty good technology. We have planes, we have rocket ships, and we have all this stuff, and we can get, to the moon, hopefully Mars soon, and that's awesome, right? And that came from a lot of work and a lot of learning and training. So let's say, hypothetically, 10,000 years from now, assuming we don't blow up the planet or get ourselves killed or anything, 10 or 20,000 years from now, we have officially developed a ship that is so dynamic that we can actually fly out of our solar system and into another constellation. It has warp speed, light speed, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And we figure out a way that we can travel to, let's say, I don't know any other constellations off the top of my head.
Let's say we go to Nibiru.
Well, no, for the sake of this analogy, I'm going to keep Nibiru out because they're already advanced.
Okay.
Let's go to one of these Earth-like planets that
Okay.
we see nearby a sun that looks like it has a probability of life, good probability, good chance of life on it, right? So we land down our ship on there after a long journey, and we get off. And we have much higher tech spacesuits, astronaut-like suits. They're big, they're fancy, they're full of everything's touchscreen and everything's 3D and everything's all awesome looking. And we step off onto this grass. The first thing we see is some sort of monkey-looking monster, right?
Okay.
Smaller than us.
With 7 tails and
Yeah.
four.
Yeah,
weird,
4 eyes, couple,
Yep.
multiple hands. Maybe it might not even need.
It might not
any of
even
that.
have any of that. It might have tentacles for all we
Yeah,
know.
could be a tentacle-looking monkey, right?
Yep.
And it looks at us. We look back at it, and we're like, "Well, that's interesting." We see this thing, and we go around, we examine the Earth, we have some fun, we try to communicate with this creature. It doesn't understand us, it doesn't know what we are. It's terrified of.
It might talk in.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah, or it can maybe making weird sounds at us.
Yes. Or it could just communicate telepathically.
Yep.
Which I think a lot of aliens probably would. I
That's-
feel like if they were so advanced, they would probably just be able to be like,
Oh yeah, in both the Travis Walton and the Bernie and Benny case. Sorry, you were staring at me. I messed up my word there, Al.
I was communicating with you telepathically.
I know. I got everything you were trying to say, but in both those cases, it was telepathic communication. It was very interesting that they claimed that that's how they communicated.
I think humans can, to a degree, communicate telepathically.
I think so.
I mean,
To a
part of it
certain
is body
sixth
language
sense.
too, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Very true. But besides the point, so we're examining this planet. We're trying to communicate with them. We go around. We look at the oceans, the seas they have there. Do some studies, and these things are terrified of us. They're hiding from us, and we say, okay, we know we figured out what we need to know. We got our samples of everything. Let's leave, right? And then we leave. We leave the planet. We fly back to Earth, and we come down. What do you think happens next on that planet, what do you think they saw us as?
Aliens.
Aliens, gods, almighty creatures that landed from the skies. We came down on this thing they have never seen before, a ship. From their point of view, they're probably looking up and thinking to themselves, what is this? Where are we? Like, what is this above us? These stars, this blackness. And then you see this out of nowhere after your entire life of nothingness and just living on this Earth-like planet. Suddenly this ship, full of these things you've never seen move, they have all this fancy, crazy lights and colors. They lands down, and these creatures on this planet are like, what on earth is this?
It's like, what is going on here?
You know what's going to happen after we leave? They're going to look at us as some, like, bizarre thing that happened. Like this crazy event. These creatures that are so high-tech.
And then they're going to write scriptures about it.
They're gonna tell all their friends. They're gonna write things down. They're gonna make drawings. That is exactly what happened on Earth. It's like when you read these scriptures from, Nibiru and stuff, it's like, and you look at the caveman drawings that are out there, it's like, this is exactly what we did when something happened like this. It's realistic. How the same way we just did it to that alien planet 20 years from now, that's likely what happened on another planet, aka probably on Nibiru. They got advanced enough, they decided to visit us. They were just another life form who developed enough to that point, and they land down, and us as cavemen didn't know what these things were, and hence we start writing things on caves, and we start spreading messages and telling stories about it. And hundreds of thousands of years after all this happens, civilization is there, and or even if they visited during the early civilization days or right before it, it's like all these word of mouth stories. Yeah, they might not necessarily be 100% exact to what actually happened, but they're gonna be close, and there's gonna be some line of truth in them. And that's definitely where a lot of this all started. So that's just a thought I wanted to leave with you. The realisticness of these, the ancient Sumerian stories and how we could do this to another planet in the future. And
then leave them with a story to tell to everybody and then develop their society.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And it's just kind of an ongoing thing, I guess. The beauty of life.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, the sequence of life and how it works.
Yep.
Yes.
Sounds about right to me. I feel like that was a good summation right there.
Yeah, it's something that, again, Eric von Daniken, he's the one who inspired that. He gave the exact analogy of landing down on an alien planet. And same thing with the numbers. So credit to him on that. I'm just speaking on what he had wrote in the book. Something I wanted to share with you.
I mean, just think about this. Think you were raised in captivity your whole life, theoretically. Never knew nothing. You're just by yourself. You have to survive. You have to get your own food and all this stuff. You've never seen another person, let's say. You're in the wild, maybe, actually. Something lands and is speaking this weird code to you. It has this weird spaceship. You're going to be like, that's a possibility. Okay.
What?
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because humans have to be taught a possibility for them to know that's a possibility.
Right.
You know what I mean? Their seed has to be planted in your mind for you to know something could be like that. You know what I mean? That's how everything starts. It's a seed that's planted. Like humans, for example, I think is a seed that was planted.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? That's a pretty simple way to describe it.
Yeah.
Life is just planted, and I feel like it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I feel like, wouldn't life, if there is aliens, wouldn't it just go to other planets and just gift, put the seed?
Hell, if these aliens can visit us here, why would they not go visit another Earth-like planet while they're out there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then, where does it come from? You know what I mean?
If they modified us, according to scripture and stories, they modified our DNA. And that's something that we can almost trace back to, something did happen in our DNA at the time that scripture says so. It's interesting to read into.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's what they say sparked. Yeah, they say it's what sparked our evolution to get so fast and create these civilizations and become aware and learn all this stuff. They interfered with it. So what if they went to another planet and did the same exact thing?
And they easily could.
Yeah.
If you have aircraft that can just go to any planet, I mean, if I were out there, I'd be like, dude, I'm out here putting life everywhere. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what humans do. we reproduce. What would aliens do? Reproduce. You know what I mean? Like, make more creatures, more life forms. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's, in my opinion, like, that would be cool. Like, that seems legitimate.
Yeah. I like the idea of new life forms being created and then inhabiting just the universe.
It's extremely likely.
Yeah. I mean, life's a beautiful thing. And I think that more and more life forms should be out there experiencing it, you know, in their own ways. So I'm all for aliens coming around, or even us, hundreds of thousands of years from now, you know, going out there and doing the same thing, planting seeds on, you know, like, I love the idea of us going on to, like, another planet and breeding humans.
Yeah.
I love that idea. That concept. Spread our race.
Think about this, though.
Give them a new life.
The cool thing to think about is, like, moon rocks, they don't exist on Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The makeup of the surface of the moon, it's all molecules, but we don't have those kind of molecules on Earth. It's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's made out of different material that we don't have on Earth. In another universe, I mean, not another universe, like another galaxy, another planet that's like Earth, it has, like, you know, parallels, but the creatures, you know, are comprised of, like, completely different material. You know what I mean?
Right.
Totally different, you know, build, you know, like,
right.
Different trees, different, you know, everything, basically. Like, what if they just ran on, like, a totally different system than we do? You know what I mean? Because people can't even think outside of oxygen and dirt and grass and air and water and, you know, rock and all this stuff. Like,
right.
In another, you know, parallel to Earth, if there's a million of them, they're going to have all different qualities, you know what I mean? Because they're, you know, just made out of different things.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And just think about all the possibilities of life forms that probably look totally different than we do.
Right.
So, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but like the Roswell thing, the crash landing, found the material that was not, you know,
not of Earth
normal
origin.
on the face of the Earth. So it's like, you know,
Well, the cool thing about the Anunnaki stuff is that it's technically a part of our constellation.
Yeah.
Like our planetary system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at some point it orbits back. And interestingly enough, you know, just a little bit of a coincidence, you could call it, they seem to be humanoid too. Everything that's ever been said about Anunnaki, they're not reptilians. I hate when people say that. There's no reason to believe that anywhere. Not that I've seen, at least. Only stupid online websites who are like, Anunnaki's real, Anunnaki's coming back because they're reptilians. Look at their scaly skin. It's like, why would they be reptilians?
That's just irrelevant.
Oh, God.
People are so concerned about the aesthetics of things.
I know.
And not, like, the actual merit and character of things.
Well, the only important aspect of it is if they are human or not, or humanoid. Because that could play a big difference.
You know what the important factor in it is?
What?
Can we communicate with them? Everything else does not matter. I don't care if they have 1 million arms. If they can somehow communicate with me and come to terms, what does it matter? You know what I mean? What does the aesthetics matter?
Supposedly they can communicate with us.
I don't care if they're reptilian. I don't care if they're flying sharks. If they
the Mothman.
If it's the Mothman. If that dude's peaceful,
big old Bigfoot.
If that dude's peaceful, he's coming through on the peace tip. I don't care what.
I'll hang out the Loch Ness monster.
Sure,
and talk to him.
If he can communicate and not be
we'll hang out on the beach together.
if he can, you know, keep back his urge to eat me, then you know maybe it's a good thing.
Cool.
You know,
yeah,
come to similar terms on things.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right on that. But yeah, it is interesting. Like, you know, the Greys. The aliens, those gray aliens, the UFOs, they're obviously from Zeta Reticuli, supposedly, according to that. But you know, the Anunnaki, if any aliens ever going to visit us again, it would be them. You know, in their orbit, and whether that's
already be here, man.
They could be, but whether that's in our life, if they're not, and they return someday,
yeah,
probably won't be in our lifetime.
I mean, the real possibility is we don't know anything about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
The truth is, though, the probability of these things existing is more likely than not. I mean, that's just simple logic. You know what I mean? Logic and reasoning can solve that question pretty simply. You know what I mean? So, with all this being said, what I would say is they could be amongst us right now. We could be them. We could be the descendants of them. We could be them all out. They might not even exist anymore. We could just be the more modernized version of them. You know what I mean? How do we know that?
Right.
Maybe
Could.
that's the missing link. You know, who knows? Like,
Yeah.
no one knows.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing, and it's one of those things you have to just prove it on your own with physical evidence. Take an alien,
This
find
is
an
my
alien.
thing. Time is the only truth.
Yeah.
Time reveals all, man. In
Yeah.
this situation, I feel like time is the only teller. You know what? It might not happen in our lifetime, but you know, in a few more lifetimes of other people, you know, the Planet X could come back. You know,
Yeah.
there could be some crazy stuff happen. A saucer could land in the middle of Times Square in New York, for all we know. We
Well,
don't.
it could be landing tonight. Well, it's already tonight, so tomorrow.
Yeah.
Land in the morning.
Hey man,
no clue.
You never know what could happen. It
Yeah.
could have already happened.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen under our noses that we don't know about.
Cover-ups.
Yeah.
Hell, it already happened in the one in New Mexico.
You know what's a good one?
Roswell.
Think about this. So, you ever thought that it's weird that people could be talking about you right now and you wouldn't even know it?
Yeah.
Like literally all the time. Somebody right now could be saying, "That dude Al, what an idiot." Right now, under my nose, and I would have no clue. Or
Right.
or somebody could be fantasizing about me for all I know. Who knows?
Right.
But you know, what if there was an exchange with aliens and Donald Trump right now? Like, we don't know this stuff.
Oh, boy.
We can't know this. There's no
Oh, boy.
proof for or against it, dude.
I know. I bet the aliens are gonna build that wall.
They could, man. If they
Yeah.
can build the pyramids, they
I
can build the wall.
Exactly. I think it'll be an easy task for them.
I don't think
the
they
aliens
have-
are probably just shaking their heads like, "God damn it, Earthlings."
I don't think they have too much of a reason to be totally honest. It's giving me Great Wall of China vibes.
Right.
And that wasn't made in a good time.
No. Absolutely not.
But that's a whole other topic right there. Which is one that I don't really understand or care about.
No, we're not gonna get into it. But hey, I think this has gone pretty long. We're at an hour and 35 minutes.
We've
Going on
gone.
an hour and yeah.
We've gone to every corner of the galaxy.
And 1 minute and 36 seconds. Haha, we are there. This is long enough. Hopefully this, it's all up to you and your opinion on this. Obviously leave a comment or, you can inbox us, anything if you have ideas.
The bottom line is that you need to know is that Evan is a reptilian.
I am a reptilian.
I can see.
So is Obama,
I can
okay?
see the lizard crawling out of you as we speak.
Oh my god, it's coming out. The reptilian skin. Help.
Yes.
Okay, let's not do that ever again.
Okay. Fair enough. But you
Yes.
never know.
Obama's an alien. We lifted the pyramid blocks with liquid, and we found trees that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Basically. Just remember that. And also, aliens don't exist.
Yeah. Just remember that.
Remember
That's
that.
an important factor.
I
right
think
there.
we drilled into your heads enough that aliens do not exist. There's no evidence for it.
And don't think about it, because
Don't
it'll
think
drive
about
you
it.
crazy.
Yes.
And then you become like me, and you don't want to do that.
Be a happy slave, okay, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Drink the powdered water.
Yes. So now we got that message out there.
We've gone.
We have gone. I think we're gonna wrap this up for this podcast tonight. We appreciate you coming in and listening, whether it's in the morning, or nighttime, or daytime, or whenever it is, wherever it is. I think we all can say we hope you have a good morning, a good day, and have a good night.
Goodbye.